guys, it's carrying my review for First Man. And I don't really think I need to delve into the plot of this movie all that much. You guys know what this movie's about, but in case you're one of the few who doesn't know what First Man is about, essentially this film is about Neil Armstrong. Basically, he was someone who was chosen to be the first man to successfully land on the moon, and basically this film is how this affects his family, how this affects him, and basically his journey into completing this mission, and, is it going to be successful, all that kind of stuff, but also the many problems that ended up happening before this moon landing, and that's really all I'm going to say. So, First Man overall, I was obviously hyped for this movie. I mean, just hearing that Damien Chazelle had another movie on his sleeves, that immediately had me on board. Whiplash and La La Land are two of my favorite movies of the decade. I think those are two phenomenal films, both about people who have these very big aspirations and will jump through as many hoops as they possibly can to make sure that they achieve that goal. And First Man, on the other hand, is a little bit different because unlike those other two movies, Chazelle is telling a real life story. He still is doing the dream, theme. It still has the theme of someone who has a dream. It's just this one is more of a true story. And I was very interested in seeing what he was going to do, but also him re-teaming with Gosling, that especially had me on board. And I'm just going to say right now, Chazelle has absolutely done it again because First Man is a fantastic film. Now, I will say, admittedly, it is the weakest of the films that Chazelle has done, but considering how great his films have been so far, that's still really not saying much at all. But we're just getting to right now. And the first thing to talk about this movie is the cast here, which I think the cast here is just absolutely phenomenal. I really love everyone in this movie. Let's first talk about Ryan Gosling, who I think is at his peak here. I mean, this is everything you could want out of a Gosling performance, and it really is a role I think that was tailor-made for him. He's very quiet, he's very stoic, but the thing that he gets down when Neil Armstrong so well is that, yes, Neil Armstrong does have a tendency to be kind of passive and to kind of feel like he is, he many times kind of feels like he's patronizing other people. But he's very passionate, and you really do see that. You can see his passion just ooze throughout the film. When he is seeing these men, do these sort of test, launches where they are testing to see if it's actually going to work, you can see why he was the guy to do it. You can see what he has above everyone else, and I think Gosling just portrayed that so well here. And again, no, it is not a big performance, but that's really what sticks out to me. He doesn't try to make Armstrong any more heroic than he was. He plays it very straight. He very much is faithful to who Neil Armstrong was as a person, and I really love what he did here. This is honestly, I think, one of the more impressive Gosling performances I've seen. He's great in everything, obviously. He's one of the best actors working today, but the reason why this sticks out more to me is because he doesn't have, like, that huge scene in the movie yet. He still is able to give a very memorable and a very heartfelt performance, and I really love what he did here. However, someone that does legitimately rival him is Claire Foy, who I thought was electric in this film. I thought she was on fire here. I loved what she did as Armstrong's wife in the film. I mean, you can see that, sure, these two do have a pretty good marriage, but when she starts to realize what he signed himself up for and the various problems that they start to endure, you can see that she starts to get very increasingly worried. There, of course, is that fear that, he might not possibly come home, and you can see how this is really starting to affect her. And she has this one scene in a bedroom that I think may possibly qualify her for Best Actress at the Academy Awards. I could definitely see that happening. I think she is fantastic in this film. She continues her streak of just really giving 100% into everything she does, and I just really loved everything that Foy did here. I thought she was, if she wasn't as good as Gosling, I think honestly at points she was even better than Gosling. I loved what she did here in this film. These two work so well together. You really do feel their relationship in the film. There's something really sweet about it, but at the same time, you can see the toll that this does take on their marriage, and I really did love what these two are able to do. They very much are the heart of the film, but they also are very much the crux of the film, and I think it worked very well as such. As far as everyone else goes, I wouldn't really say anyone gives a amazing performance. I will say Corey Stoll, I really liked as Buzz Aldrin. You know, you can see that he is very pleased about this. He's very excited. A lot of times he will kind of help out Armstrong because he's a lot more outspoken than Armstrong was, and I definitely like seeing that. I thought Jason Clarke was really great here. I really loved what he had to do in the film. Kyle Chandler was great. Shea Whigham, Pablo Schreiber, even the kids of Armstrong's kids in the film, I thought were also really good here. I really liked the child actors in this film. I thought they did a really good job. But someone I do want to give a big highlight to is Olivia Hamilton, who plays Jason Clarke's wife in the film. And I don't want to say too much about her because, a lot of what happens in their story, a lot is not known about the Ed Spielers, the person Ed Spielers, and I don't want to say too much about him. But where they end up going, there's a scene between her and Claire Foy, and it's just heartbreaking. And I don't think she's going to get a Best Supporting Actress nomination, but I do think she did some legitimately great work here. I really love what she was able to put into the film, and I think she really was fantastic. Everyone here really did a great job. Everyone was very well casted, and I was very impressed by the cast here. But now I really want to get to Damien Chazelle's directing here, which I thought was fantastic. What he does very well with this film is that, sure, it is a true story, and sure, we do want to see them go to the moon, but Chazelle makes, I think, a very smart choice and chooses to make it much more of a drama. He does not make this a thriller. This is not a sci-fi movie. This is very much a drama. So it is very much in line with other things he's done. It just feels a little bit grander, and I think the tone is very well done in that respect because it feels very real. It feels like you could just go back into the 1960s, and this really does feel like how it would actually play out. There's there are definitely some fun moments in the movie, but for the most part, it is a serious drama, and I do think Chazelle did a very good job with directing it. And it's very emotional as well. He pours a lot of emotion into this film, and you can see how passionate he really was here. Just like Armstrong, this is very passionate for Chazelle, and that's something I really enjoyed with the directing. I thought the directing was definitely very good here, and I really enjoyed the way that was all going down. There's a lot of stuff I really enjoy about the directing, especially because he chooses to keep the focus not really on Armstrong going to the moon, but instead on Armstrong's family. And I think this was a very smart choice because very little is known about Armstrong. And because of that, the writing is a little bit stagnant for some people. I can already tell that some people are not a huge fan of the writing. That seems to be the main criticism. And I will say this about the writing. Is this a amazing screenplay? Is this one of the best of the year? No, it's not. But I do think there is some really great stuff in this film. For example, like I said, I really love the family dynamic between Armstrong, his wife, and the kids. I think it was definitely a very good choice. And a lot of this film actually is awaiting for him to go to the moon, which I thought was a very smart choice because, again, there's a lot of stuff that isn't known about that specific time. We know obviously what led them to get to the moon, but we don't know what was going on in the test sessions and things like that. And this film really does, tell you that story, I think, fairly well. And I really enjoyed that a lot. And because of the fact that this film does play things fairly straight and it's a very by-the-numbers story, a lot of people are saying, oh, they didn't give enough to the Neil Armstrong character. And again, I really wouldn't say that because Neil Armstrong in general was a very quiet person. He wasn't someone that liked to say a lot about his family life. He wasn't someone that expressed a lot of emotions, but you can definitely see through that why this guy was chosen because, again, he's the only one to remain calm during the situation while others are kind of, they're very worried and they're very on edge throughout what's happening to him. Armstrong remained calm, and you can tell why he was the one selected to go up into space, and I think that's really what they do a very good job with when it comes to this script. They make it very clear this is why Armstrong was the one to go to space, and I do think they did a very good job with that overall. But what I also really love in the film is really getting into the main conflict, because a lot of people forget this. The main reason that we wanted to go to the moon, of course, is because of the whole Cold War situation that was going on. Russia had plans to go up into space, and we wanted to beat them. We wanted to be the ones to be the first, we wanted America to rise up as a superior nation, and I think that that is also a very interesting conflict that is very well portrayed in the film. This is something that is a lot more fleshed out than I expected, and I really enjoyed seeing that a lot. They really do get into that inner conflict between these two nations, how Russia is constantly trying to one up America and vice versa, and this was kind of our way of showing that we were better. And I do think that it's a very American film in that way. And that leads me to the thing that I don't really want to talk about, but unfortunately, because of all the news articles, I kind of have to. The American flag controversy should not be there. It absolutely should not be there, and I'll tell you why. Because like I said, the movie is extremely patriotic. Like, sure, do we see a shot of them planting the flag into the moon? No, we do not. But there's a very good reason for that. Instead, the film chooses for Armstrong to go on the moon and do something a lot more personal and do something that is much closer to his heart. And I thought, in context of what they were trying to do, it made a lot of sense. And I really wish people weren't, beating behind the bush so much about this. I don't really think this is something to worry about. I understand, like, sure, it's a part of history. You don't want to try to reinvent history. I totally understand that. But we do see the flag. Like, the flag is planted into the moon, and we just don't see it because the film chooses for Armstrong to do something else. And again, because a lot of this film focuses on him and his family and context of what's going on, I thought it was beautiful, and I think it's legitimately one of the best moments in the entire film, and if it was cut out, I don't think the film would be nearly as impactful as it really was. So for me, it worked very well. I don't know if Armstrong actually did it, but I don't really care because I think it does work in context with the story. And look, there are many American flags like spread throughout this movie, so anyone saying that this film is something against American flags, not true at all. It's definitely there, and of course, just wanted to address that. Not something to get upset about. Go see the movie, and then you can still complain about it if you want to, but like I said, it should not be a controversy at all. Also, I love seeing them get into the mechanics of this mission, the different problems that they go through, because trust me, there are far more than you may expect. I was honestly really shocked at the various things that did occur, but it does get really bad, and you do get this sense of, like, maybe this isn't going to work out. You could tell why this was kind of like one of those one-shot things. Like, if we didn't pull this off, then we might never get the opportunity to do so again, and you really do feel that here. You can tell the lengths that they had to go through to perfect this mission, the amount of money that was being spent. I mean, there's some great scenes in this movie where you can see that that is not something that is very well received. The public actually was very split with this. Remember, this was around the time where, the hippie culture was at its prime and things like that, and people were very much against society. And there's a really great scene where this one guy is protesting about how, oh, they're going to the moon, but there are all these other things that they're overlooking, and it's probably one of my favorite scenes of the entire film. I really loved it a lot. I think it gave a lot of insight into what really did go down, but also, again, how the public received it. And again, it's one of those things where, like, if it wasn't there, I don't think the film would be as impactful as it really is, because that is something that I really didn't know, and I really like getting into that overall. In terms of cinematography, this is some of the best I have seen all year. I mean, it is absolutely extraordinary what they were able to do with this film. You would honestly think that they did go up into space and, shoot all this stuff, because it is crazy the way it's done. I mean, when you are going into space and you see, Armstrong and Buzz, and they're finally, they're in that lunar, and you see just the look on their faces of not knowing how it's going to go. I mean, it's exhilarating, and it really gives you this sense of euphoria. It's one of those things where you really do forget you're watching a movie. And not to say cinematography isn't great throughout the most of the movie, it's really just those space scenes, though, they really do stick out, and it is incredible what they were able to do with them. them. I mean, especially once they get to space, the entire atmosphere of the movie changes. And it's not just because once you get into space, you know, the entire atmosphere changes in general, but like the aspect ratio changes and the movie suddenly has like a different color palette. It's really cool. I'd love to get into it more, but you guys are just gonna have to go and see it because this movie, it is an experience. It's one that you have to see in the theater. And if you don't get to see it in the theater, I think you honestly are doing yourself a disservice because this movie does work best with a very large sound system, a very large crowd, and I think that's definitely one of the best things about this film. I mean, they really did a great job in recapturing that moon landing as best as they really could. But even scenes of the practice stuff, you know, the practice rounds that they're doing, you still are getting that feeling. You still are on the edge of your seat because even though you know what's going to happen, you feel like you're right there with them. You're feeling that anxiety, and I think they did such a great job with that in this film. I really love the cinematography here. Truly some of the best I have seen in the year. I mean, there are some shots here that truly are fantastic. I've heard people refer to this as this generation's 2001: A Space Odyssey. And look, is this film nearly as complex as that? No, it's pretty straightforward. But in terms of the space scenes, there are some scenes, I'm not going to lie to you, where I did honestly get that vibe. And I think they did a really great job with that here. The score as well, this film is really great. I really loved it a lot, particularly the scenes where they're going up into space. It gives you this very, you know, immersive feeling, and I think they did a really good job with that. And the editing, like I said, the first half did drag just a tad for me, but for the most part, I do think this film is pretty well paced, and I do think they made a good choice in focusing on the before rather than the after. You know, a lot of films, they try to get right into the meat and potatoes of what really happened in this mission, but this film really does take its time, and I think that actually is one of its biggest strengths, and that's one of the reasons why I did enjoy this film, I think, as much as I did. I think if we hadn't spent as much time on as what we do in the film, I don't think the film would be nearly as impactful as it was. So overall, guys, First Man is pretty much everything I want it to be. It is a very well-constructed film. It really does get you into the difficulties that Armstrong and all of them had to face, but also showcasing his passion and his love for his wife, and it has a very good family dynamic as well. But like I said, it really is worth it for that final act. See that in the biggest auditorium you can possible. It probably is one of the most immersive things you'll see all year. Sure, the film is fairly cookie cutter in terms of Neil Armstrong, but again, that's really who he was, and you can't really fault the film for doing that. It has a pitch-perfect performance from Ryan Gosling and Claire Foy, both of which I do think are honestly probably going to get maybe some Oscar love. I'm not entirely sure about Gosling, but Foy I think will probably be in there for sure. It is very well done. Sure, it is Damien Chazelle's weakest film, but it's still a film that at the end of the day I can still say that I really did love. It pretty much did what I wanted to do, and it shows that, you know, his directing is definitely not fading out anytime soon. It's a story that I think does need to be told, and I think this film does it in a way that films like Apollo 13 just haven't been able to do, and that's something that I really loved about this film a lot. First Man is a fantastic movie, and I'm going to give it an A-. But overall, guys, in my review of First Man, let me know what you guys saw this movie overall, left your thoughts in it. What do you think of Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong, all that stuff. And also, what's your favorite Damien Chazelle film? I'd love to hear that as well. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.